Hey Radiant Youth, if I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you yet, my name is Sam Canchola, and my wife Az and I get the huge honor of serving Radiant Youth as the Central Youth Directors. Hey, I have a question for you. How many of you have heard the phrase, blood is thicker than water?
What?
We're not sure if that's scientifically accurate, but we all know that old adage is relationally on point. Our families, who we didn't choose them and we have no control over them, yet we all have them, they all look different, and no matter what, family seems to have a very real impact on all of us.
That's true.
So what can we learn from the authors of Scripture about the way we relate to these people we're so uniquely connected to? In this series, we'll discover that our families might be more tied to our own stories than we may have expected. And from the way we love people to the way we choose to treat our friends, family can have an impact on so much of who we are. That's why for the next 4 weeks, we'll take time to focus on the relationships in our lives that are thicker than water. Now, I realize that when I say family, that means something different for everyone. No family looks the same, acts the same, or has the same story. And for some of us, family means mom or dad. Some of us live with an aunt and uncle. Some of us are with a stepmom or stepdad, grandparents, foster parents, half-siblings, or second cousins. But even when our families are structured the same, they're still different because the people who make up that family are unique, including you. Take me, for example. Let's see if you can keep up. I have 4 siblings, 1 half-brother, which we have the same dad but different moms. I have another half-brother who have the same mom but different dads. And then I have 2 stepsisters from my mom marrying my stepdad. I'm the youngest, I'm the middle, and I'm the oldest, and in a crazy, unique way, I have siblings, but to my mom and dad, I'm their only child. It's crazy. And if you think it's crazy, try coordinating the holidays. It's even crazier.
Stop putting so much pressure on me.
Now, because all families are unique, they bring their own unique set of challenges. In fact, we're going to talk about those challenges throughout this series. But one of them is that sometimes family can feel like, well, a bit much. It can be a lot to manage and juggle. When it comes to family, there are a whole bunch of things in the mix. Think about it. We have a lot of personalities, needs, opinions, and preferences. I mean, try asking what we're going to have dinner for tonight. Schedules and activities, attitude and drama, come on. A lot of noise. I mean, there's also just a lot of human beings. I mean, so for some of you, the sheer number of people is a lot. When you add all of these things on top of each other and put them all under 1 or 2 roofs, it can get complicated. And here's what's interesting. The whole God, church, Jesus, Bible thing can sometimes add another complication to your family dynamic as well. It's another preference, another opinion, another part of your busy schedule. Faith, then, becomes another thing to add on to the family mix. And while we would assume and have the best intentions that it would only make things better, sometimes it doesn't. Because maybe you feel confused because you're not sure how you're supposed to live out your faith with your family. Or maybe your mom and stepdad expect you to act a certain way because you claim to be a Christian. And there's a certain way Christians are supposed to act. And honestly, it's just a lot of pressure. Or maybe faith has been part of your family for a while, but when you look at your family, you're not sure if it's working. Faith is talked about, prayers are prayed, church is attended, but the arguments and the tensions aren't solved. Or maybe both of your parents, they claim to have faith, but you wonder, how come they're now divorced? Or how come they're separated? You love the people you live with, or at least like them sometimes, but it doesn't seem like faith is solving any of your complicated issues. It's tough. For a lot of us, it feels like faith is one part of the mix and family is another. And it feels like they're totally separate and that they can't help or change each other. But what would happen if we allowed our faith and our family to mix? Well, I think this entire series could be a game changer on the way you interact with your family forever. You see, the first 4 books of the New Testament, they're called the Gospels, and they are accounts of Jesus' life when he lived among us. One of those Gospels is the book of John, written by one of Jesus' closest friends. And in the section we're looking at today, John records how Jesus and his disciples were sharing an important meal together. It was the Passover meal, which was a religious holiday. And the disciples didn't know that this was going to be Jesus' final meal with them, but Jesus did. You see, the disciples had spent years traveling with Jesus and living beside him. And there's no doubt they felt more like family. And Jesus understood that things were about to get extremely complicated and highly emotional for these guys. I mean, their leader was about to be killed and everything would change. This is what John says. It says, "It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Just like you love your complicated family, Jesus loved his disciples. And they didn't do everything right, not even by a long shot, but Jesus still loved them. And knowing his time with them was coming to an end, watch what he did next. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him." If you think this sounds awkward now, you have no idea how awkward it was to the disciples. You see, even though foot washing was a common thing then, you can imagine how nasty feet got walking along dirt roads in sandals. I mean, Jesus was a teacher and a leader, which means that he had authority. And people in his position, they didn't wash people's feet. That's what servants did. So the disciples didn't know how to respond to Jesus' unbelievable act of kindness and service to them. And check this out. Jesus went on and to say this, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Wow. What Jesus is saying is, you remember what I just did a few minutes ago? How I acted like a servant and washed your feet? How I humbled myself and chose to honor you? How I showed my love for you, even when it felt awkward? I want you to show each other that kind of love and service. And by doing that, everyone else will know that you are my followers. I mean, think about it. How will people know that you are a follower of Jesus? What will show the people closest to you that you follow God? It's simple. It's love. You see, the disciples had no idea how loving it was for Jesus to wash their feet. Jesus even knew that one of his disciples would betray him, and one of his closest friends, Peter, would deny knowing him. Even knowing he would be hurt by most of them, Jesus still washed their feet. And Jesus remained focused on love, and he gave us an incredible example of what to do with the people closest to us. We are to love. Your friends, your teachers, strangers, and even your family will know your faith by the way you love. When you do something kind and no one says thank you, love. When your older brother or sister acts like a jerk towards you, what do? Love. When you feel like your parents made a decision that was unfair, you love. So what does it look like to love in the middle of complicated family situations? Well, the Apostle Paul would later write about love and tell us this. He says, love is patient, love is kind. It doesn't envy. It doesn't boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. If we were to ask Jesus or Paul what faith would look like in our complicated families, I think this is what they'd say. Let your faith in Jesus move you to love the people you live with. Love with patience. Love with kindness. Love in a way that honors the people around you. And love in a way that is slow to anger and doesn't keep a record of wrongs. In other words, if you want your faith to help your family, then show as much love as you can. It never fails. And even if you're not sure what you think about faith and you're still asking those questions, it's still a great idea. Think of it this way. When it comes to our relationships that are thicker than water, love is more important than anything. I want you to pick one of these and ask God to give you the power to demonstrating it with your family. Why? Well, because these things don't make you a doormat. They allow you to be a demonstration for God. Y'all, I need y'all to know this. Family is important. And in fact, blood is thicker than water. And faith is important too. And I hope you now see that the two absolutely mix. You see, loving your family is actually one of the greatest ways you can build your faith. And so as you go to your small group, talk about ways you can show your family love. Because when it comes to relationships that are thicker than water, love is more important than anything. Radiant Youth, I love y'all, and I can't wait to hear all of the ways that God speaks to you, and I hope you have an amazing Wednesday night.